Tigaz. We're ready to live stream.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the August 19th, 2024 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present and accounted for, and as well as two of our student representatives, James and Shira. The board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board. Board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the LWSD website and are available for viewing following the conclusion of the board meeting as well. The public are always welcome to email the board at boardmembers@lwsd.org. Director Yoakum, will you please read our land acknowledgement?
Yes. The Board of Directors of Lake Washington School District acknowledges that our district is on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples, who have reserved treaty rights on this land, including the Duwamish and the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived here since time immemorial. We commit to continue collaborating with our Native community to teach the indigenous history of this land and these local tribes to all children of the district. We also commit to provide the best possible education for all children of Native descent who attend our schools.
Thank you, Director Yoakum. I will now entertain a motion to approve the August 19th, 2024 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Guthrie to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is a recognition where you would like to introduce our new and our returning student representatives. Tonight we will be recognizing all four of our student representatives, and I believe, is it Director Yoakum or is it Director Stewart or Director LaLiberty that will be doing the recognition?
That would be Director LaLiberty.
Yeah.
Should we do that? Okay. We're gonna pass the buck to our students and have them introduce themselves. Let's start with, I guess, Shira, you want to reintroduce yourself? We'll start with that. How about name, school, grade, and favorite thing to do on a cruise ship?
Okay, my name is Shira. I'm going to be a senior at Lake Washington High School. And my favorite thing to do on a cruise ship is play bingo.
Hi, my name's James. I'm going to be a junior at Lake Washington High School. And my favorite thing to do on a cruise ship is eat.
Great. And we have two more in the audience. We have Ella Shee. Ella, can we maybe do a microphone? If you could both come up, great.
Am I also supposed to answer the cruise ship question? Okay.
It could be hypothetical too, like if you were to go on a cruise ship.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ella. I'm gonna be a senior at Redmond High School, and my favorite thing that I would be doing on a cruise ship is probably sit on my phone and watch Netflix and do nothing. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Saneri. I'm going to be a junior at Eastlake High School, and my favorite thing to do on a cruise ship would be avoiding my family.
Great. Thank you, Ella.
And what about you, Director LaLiberty?
Also avoid my family.
Divorce lawyer in your future.
Yes, I'm on it. Thank you. So this, just for members of the audience and watching at home, we have 4 student reps this year. This is our third year of doing this program. And the goal for the student representative program is to provide a an opportunity and a conduit for student voice to participate and affect board outcomes and participate in the process. So we're really happy to have the two new student reps on the board. And welcome, James, and welcome, Suniri. And I think one of the other hopes for this year is as we're continuing to think about the process and the work of our student rep program, is giving more ownership to our students to develop projects on their own. And so we'll be doing that, and we look forward to seeing what comes of your leadership this year.
Thank you very much, Director Liberty, and welcome to our returning seniors and our incoming juniors. We're excited to work with you. The next item on our agenda this evening is public comment. The Board of Directors of Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes to hear from the public during the public comment period of the meeting, with each individual provided up to 2 minutes to speak. This evening, we do not have anyone signed up for public comment, so we will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the August 19th, 2024 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Liberty, seconded by Director Yoakum. Superintendent Holman, will you please poll the board?
Absolutely. Director Yoakum,
Yes.
Director Stewart,
Yes.
Director La Liberty,
Yes.
Vice President Guthrie,
Yes.
and President Choi.
Yes, the motion carries. Superintendent Holman, will you please summarize the donations this evening?
Yes, so just like our first meeting in August, our community, our parents, our foundation continues to actively participate in helping to fund our schools and programs and services for kids. So in your packet tonight, there's over $35,000 in donations coming from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation and our PTSA and PTOs. We want to thank them for those donations.
Awesome, thank you. The next item on our agenda is legislative business. Director Yoakum.
Following our riveting conversation from the last board meeting, I did submit our amendments to the amendments, and the new news is WASDA handbook, the final one, is now available with 10 new amendment proposals. And Caitlin, I believe this evening, just emailed a new survey which includes these 10 amendments with the original proposals as well. So for example, you will see item 11A, which is the most recent amendment, followed by 11, which was the original amendment. Please make sure that all of you please complete the survey by September 2nd. Again, there are only 20 on there, 10 that are new. So then I can review and plan for any needed discussions during our September 9th meeting. And then for each item, and we have a do pass or do not pass, and I believe we changed unsure to other with a comment box. So if there is something you want to include in a comment, questions, whatever that can help guide our discussion on the 9th, that would be helpful to include in that section. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Holman, do we have a staff update as well?
We do. Associate Superintendent Posthumus is here to provide a brief update for the board.
Very brief, just wanted to describe the activities that have occurred since our last board meeting. So last week, Caitlin, again, our government relations liaison, and I met with a nonpartisan member of the Office of Program Research for the Labor and Workplace Standards Committee. It's very long office. Just really more conversations to discuss unpaid family medical leave. Again, this meeting was at the request of Representative Wallen. And then Caitlin also met with Congresswoman Del Benny's new Education and Technology Policy Advisor to introduce her to some of the district's federal policy priorities. And Congresswoman Del Benny's advisor was interested in learning about the district's exploration of AI opportunities. And she also provided insight into Congress's priorities for the rest of the year. Their main priority is passing a budget before September 30th to avoid a government shutdown. Congress is in recess from September 30th to November 11th. The other priority is passing the Kids Online Safety and Privacy Act, otherwise known as KOSA, K-O-S-A. It did pass the Senate July 30th and was referred to the House. So its best chance of passage is during the post-election. So that's my update.
Thank you very much. The first item on our non-consent agenda this evening is the public hearing on the adoption of the no, it's not a public hearing, right? No.
Just the adoption.
Just the adoption. Is the adoption of the 2024-25 budget. Dr. Holman.
Yes, and I'll invite Associate Superintendent Barbara Posthumus back up to the microphone. It's her team and her staff that work for months on end to prepare a budget where they're receiving input. They apprise the board along the way. And so would like to pass the mic to her to share information and provide the board with an update before you take action tonight on the budget.
Good evening, thank you. And just a reminder that the F-195 budget is the formal budget that the board is adopting tonight, and we presented the draft budget to the board at the June 24th meeting, provided a longer presentation which is available to the public on our website. We held a budget hearing on August 5th, and the copies of the budget were posted. We do have posted in board docs tonight and on the website is our what we call our meritorious budget award format, the more detailed budget summary, so that is posted tonight. So the budget includes, again, all of the budgets, the 4-year forecast, the levy information necessary to support all our funds. There was only one change made between June and August. This version, we moved revenue from one program 4100 to 4121, just corrected a revenue code, so no total dollars were changed, but just made a correction to a code, and that's really the information I have tonight. So.
Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2380, adoption of the 2024-25 budget as presented.
I move adoption of resolution 2380 for the 2024-2025 budget.
Second.
Are there any board member questions or comments at this time? Yes, Director Guthrie.
I did want to clarify, in the resolution, it talks about approving transfers from the Capital Projects Fund to the Debt Service Fund and also from the Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund. I just wanted to verify that those are planned transfers, or that's like my understanding for technology, for example, is that technology dollars come into the Capital Projects Fund because that's how the levies are set up, and so this is not that the general fund is short and we need to transfer. This is just that that was intentional. It's just how the money flows in and then how it needs to flow out.
Yeah, we're required to do that by law. So, and you said it correctly that the technology portion of the levy is deposited into the Capital Projects Fund, but by law we are required to record expenditures relating to software and teacher training that the levy pays for in the general fund. So we budget the expenditures in the general fund and then you'll see that transfer budgeted. So that's the transfer from capital projects to general fund, and then the transfer from capital projects to debt service relates to principal and interest that again, monies are deposited in the capital projects fund, but we have to transfer them into our debt service fund to pay the principal and interest back. So thank you for the question.
Any other questions? I would just like to say thank you. I appreciate the work that, the huge amount of work that goes into all of this, and looking forward to seeing the final draft of the meritorious budget summary. I sat through and looked through the not fun version, and it makes me appreciate the other version even more. If there are no other comments or questions, it has been moved by Director Liberty and seconded by Director Guthrie that the board adopt resolution number 2380, adoption of the 2024-25 budget as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you. And so our next steps will be to finalize and make it a final version, and then we'll get it posted. And I also would like to thank all the hard work that my team has done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is the closure of the future school. Dr. Holman.
Yes, and so in the board's packet, I drafted a situation statement, and I just think it would be appropriate to read that statement just as for context. At the May 20th, 2024 board meeting, I provided a recommendation to the board to take action to close the future school. A public hearing was also held at the May 20, 2024 board meeting. The future school was opened in 1999 to address credit deficiency and to increase engagement and social emotional well-being of students. While the future school provided a much needed support for students, the school has experienced significant decline in enrollment and did not enroll students from outside of the Juanita High School boundary starting in the 2014-2015 school year. No students have been enrolled in the school over the last 2 years. Additionally, Lake Washington School District has credit recovery and social and behavioral health supports at all of our high schools now, and the need for a standalone program has been reduced over time. And so it's with that that the closure of this school is not to diminish the support that it did provide for students for so many years. This recommendation comes as those supports have been put into place at all of our schools, and our schools continue to look for different ways to address credit deficiency, social emotional well-being, and behavioral health supports for students. And so Resolution 2384 would be to close the future school moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Director Guthrie.
I know we had the public hearing back in May and we didn't have any comments. Have you received any comments since that time?
We have not received any comments either to communications or to me directly.
Anyone else? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2384, the closure of the future school as presented.
I move to adopt resolution number 2384, closure of the future school as presented.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Guthrie and seconded by Director La Liberty to adopt resolution number 2384, closure of the future school. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The third item on our non-consent agenda this evening is a sustainability program update. Dr. Holman.
Yes, and so Deputy Superintendent Gillingham is going to come to the podium to provide an update for the board. As you know, the board adopted a sustainability policy in spring of 2024, and tonight is really just an update around the work that has transpired since that point in time, knowing that there were a number of components within the policy that we needed to take action on. And this really is an update as to where we are, knowing that we haven't checked the box to say we've completed our work, but just to give the board and the community an update.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holman. Well, I'm disappointed to say that we haven't completed our work yet. I was hoping that we'd be able to do that within months of adopting this policy, but we are not there yet. So this would be a very brief update, just some status as we begin to operationalize the policy. We'll just do a quick policy recap. And then just update where we're at in terms of actually beginning to staff to have a program. Briefly touch on we're in the process of developing an RFP to receive solicit some outside support in addition to the support that we already have in place. And then we will be establishing an advisory committee. So just as a recap, the board went through an exercise last year to adopt a sustainability policy. And, really there are kind of some key components of this policy. One is to reduce the environmental impacts of the district operations, to identify the operational threats, opportunities, and investments deemed prudent to ensure the long-term health and viability of the district, and to prepare and educate the students of the district to understand the connection between a sustainable environment and the actions and behaviors of humans, which then leads us into 4 directives to the superintendent that the board has. One is to look at how do we reduce or mitigate the district's impact on the environment, to enhance the district's resiliency, to prepare students, and to equip staff to appropriately support these efforts, both in preparing students and supporting students, as well as mitigating our impacts and enhancing our resiliency. So following that, we talked about kind of, well, how are we going to operationalize this policy, since this is a new expectation that the board has for the district and the superintendent. So we need to identify some expertise in helping us undertake and support this policy, both internally and externally. So Dr. Holman identified in the budget funding to staff, provide support for this implementation, and begin to identify specific tangible actions the district will work on for this year, and as well as developing a communication plan. So where we're at today is we developed a job description for the Sustainability and Resource Conservation Manager. That position will have program development and management responsibilities, will play a role in policy and compliance, will be a key partner in staff and community engagement, particularly thinking the board had an interest in engagement with our municipal partners and regional partners, as well as helping assist with analysis and optimization. And so these are all I just pulled actually directly from the job description. We did post this job and have gone through a couple of rounds of interview processes, identified some candidates that we're in the process of reference checking, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to announce somebody filling this position so we can get this off the ground. And then one of the things too that's important is, as we are not a blank canvas. The board has had updates on a lot of the work that the district has been doing over the years to reduce its environmental impacts. So what will be important, and we talked with candidates around, is really grounding in what previous work has been done, who's been doing it, who's been engaged in that. Looking at the plans of both our municipal partners and the district. Establishing relationships will be really key, and then beginning to assess our current practice, and then identifying opportunities to improve on areas of investment, and particularly those areas that we've made some investments in, but that we can do a better job in making sure that we're doing it well and that we're doing it consistently. The other thing that we're in the process of doing is we have been developing a request for proposal around a climate action plan and a decarbonization roadmap. And so our purchasing manager has actually been researching what other school districts that we've been using as exemplars and what they have been doing in this area. And she's been pulling samples of RFPs for similar work from school districts, as well as other kind of government agencies such as cities, and developing a proposal that where we can go out and solicit help for thinking about how do we develop a climate action plan, particularly thinking about the decarbonization, reduction of greenhouse gases, and developing a scope of work for the contractor to help us think about our cost effectiveness, reducing and mitigating environmental impacts, and enhancing our resiliency. So this is still a work in progress. We actually have a meeting next week with a bunch of internal stakeholders to review this and get it moving a little bit further along. But we're in the process, so we'll be hopefully within a month having somebody on staff that can internally help us move this forward, and then also being ready to go out and with a round for soliciting some external support as well. And then finally, once we have our internal staff on, that person will help support our efforts in establishing a sustainability advisory committee, where we expect students, staff, parents, and district leadership to participate, to provide guidance and consideration for the district. We've had similar groups with equity or inclusion that have been really helpful as we gain different perspectives and expertise from our community. So we'll be launching that this year as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is the Sustainability Advisory Committee, is that an ongoing, it would be an ongoing committee, I'm assuming?
I believe that's the idea right now, is not necessarily to just spin something up to then stop it shortly, because there's more than enough work here. So at least a couple of years worth of work.
And you can tell me if this is jumping too far ahead, but I was wondering what was going to be the goal of that advisory committee? Is it policy advisory? Is it?
We'll need to develop we'll need to develop charter, and one of the things I think that we'll want to do some designing with the individuals that are part of that. I know, having led the Inclusion Advisory Committee last year, part of the things, we had some ideas of, what that group might look like at the beginning, and then at the end, we actually had some really good discussion around, okay, so what was beneficial based on this experience and how might it evolve? So I would want to have the kind of the input of those that are part of it, and then once we have a sustainability manager on board to help kind of draft that charter that we can start working with.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you. Dr. Holman? No. The next item on our agenda this evening then is a high school day update. Dr. Holman?
Yes, as the board knows, we've been actively working since really the beginning of last year evaluating the high school day. That came with a set of recommendations that came to a technical team, and so Deputy Superintendent Beebe is here tonight to provide an update as to kind of where we are in process and some timelines and process moving forward for both the board and community, what they can expect. Scott.
Thank you, Dr. Holman, members of the board. I have about 83 data slides we're going to go through. No, I'm kidding. I was told a brief update, and in part what we're trying to do is continue to raise awareness that this work is occurring. So I'm going to rehash some of the previous update from May, and then get you into a little bit of the work that started up this fall in August around the technical work group that has started working on this particular problem. So we'll jump right in with the big questions that we were trying to answer through this work. Last year, we convened a committee of stakeholders, students, staff, parents, and community members. We had a lot at the beginning, and it sort of waned over the course of the year, as these things tend to do. But we completed that process in May and the committee made a series of recommendations around moving forward with looking at alternatives to the current 7-period day, high school day structure. And the rationale for that is documented in the report in great detail. It really was related to a couple of things. One was financial ongoing cost of the 7-period day. That is not a state-funded extra period. We're funded at 6 periods. We added a 7th. And the other piece of that really was around, we did a lot of data analysis around, did we achieve the intended impacts for what the original committee that made the recommendation back in 2015 to move to a 7-period day intended to happen as a result of that. For some kids, yes. For other kids, we really didn't see the intended impact in the way that we had hoped. So that really was the genesis, that and some concern around student feelings of self-efficacy. Despite being one of the highest achieving districts in the state, our kids do not report high feelings of self-efficacy around their ability to perform academically, and that varied greatly depending upon the groups of students reporting. And we looked at that over time also. And then I just reiterate a little bit, why are we doing this now? We made a giant structural change moving from a 6-period to a 7-period day to accomplish more targeted need. The intent of that was to allow students to accumulate 24 credits when we moved to the 24 credit diploma and give them opportunities beyond 24. A lot of that was driven by credit retrieval. So if students are not successful in a class, they have built-in ability to retake that class. What we've seen happen in the interim is that our credit retrieval options really aren't asking students by and large to repeat the entire class. We have built-in repeat the unit, repeat the content that was missed, and other credit retrieval opportunities that have sort of filled that gap. So we don't see a lot of kids retaking coursework. We also see a lot of kids coming out of middle school now, in part of the board knows we're moving towards algebra for all at 8th grade. That's a high school credit. So kids are leaving middle school. We also have foreign language opportunities. Kids are leaving middle school with more credits. We also saw a big increase in that when the state moved from requiring students to ask for the transcription to the middle school are just automatically, those courses are automatically transcribed to the student's transcript. We realized that one size doesn't fit all, and in this case, we forced everybody into a 7-period day. What we saw in 11th and 12th graders indicates that many of our 11th graders and a good chunk of our 12th graders do not take a full 7-period day, although we have to staff accordingly for us. So there's some, we made everybody do it. It wasn't necessarily appropriate for everyone. And then alignment, there's an opportunity now to do some alignment with some of the values that the board has expressed, particularly around OE14. That was not in existence when the previous committee did the work. It is now, and it guides our thinking and certainly guided the thinking of the previous committee that worked on this. And we have kind of a unique opportunity to think differently about how we use time within the school day and time outside of the school day to accomplish the interests and intentions, both from the original committee and the committee that worked on this last year. So I've been upfront about this the whole time. I was upfront about this with the committee. This is really a big part of the issue. When we made this decision in 2017, I think is when we made the decision to roll to a 7-period day. The fiscal outlook for our school district was very different than it is now. We were growing by 500 and 600 students a year. We were revenue positive every year, so we had more revenue coming in than expenditure, part because staffing lags a little bit behind when the students show up. So we had capacity to absorb that within the budget. As our enrollment has flattened and declined, we've lost a little over 1,500 students at the elementary level, so we expect to see, as that bubble goes through, enrollment to continue to decline. Our ability to sustain some of those decisions that were made at a different economic time has really been challenged, and this is one of them. So I've said this before, but the real cost here is to run that extra period for all students is roughly 60, I'm just rounding up, 60 FTE. In fact, I think it is closer to 60 this year. 60 FTE In last year's dollars, that was approximately $8 million that we have to come up with out of local levy every year to sustain that. This year's dollars, it's north of $9 million. When we made the decision in 2017, it was roughly 5.3. So you can see how the costs are continue to escalate every year, putting increased pressure on the fiscal outlook for the district. So I don't want to hide the fact that there is a fiscal component to this work that we're doing. Just briefly, this was the committee work last year, began in October and continued throughout the year, culminating in a study session, and then a report was submitted and posted online with all of the materials from the meetings and an analysis of the work that occurred. So that is all available on the district website still, and will continue to be. I don't want to reiterate, I mean, I could have put 100 data slides in here, but I chose not to this time. Out of the recommendations came a set of design conditions. These are really the parameters that were put both by the committee that did the work and recommendations that came out of there, and then some additional thinking from Dr. Holman and executive cabinet around, well, if we're really going to do this, then we need to make sure we're addressing some of these other things. And I'll spend a little time on that here in a minute. We were given a parameter for the budget that we should not expect to recoup the full $9-ish million in this year's dollars, but really to look at that, having about half of that to redistribute, to reprioritize back into the system to address some of the design considerations. So that's where the opportunity to be innovative, and that's where the opportunity to invest in the values that the board has expressed is coming from, because we're not expecting this to be the sole budget work that we need to do this year. And then we are expected over the course of the year to develop a communication plan, because we have a lot going on that is not particularly well known or well understood, and I put a big "and" in there. And people don't know how to access some of those things. So how are we communicating what we're already doing and what opportunities exist for kids? And as we add things on top of that, how are we ensuring that the kids we want to have that access, which is all of them, actually know about it and know how to access it? So that work is beginning as well. And then credit options. We know that there are kids who need additional opportunities, both for enrichment and for, I don't like this word, but I can't think of a better one, sort of remediation or opportunities to accrue the credits for on-time graduation. So how can we build some of that into this plan also? So design considerations, I'm not going to read them all to you, but some of them are things that the committee really struggled with around, like in-school intervention. Most of our high schools, if not all of them, are using a piece of software called Flex-a-Sketch, where they will do intervention period. Kids can sign up to go see teachers, or teachers can call groups of kids in. Now, the challenge with that is we still have student supervision responsibilities. So I'm a teacher and I want to call in 6 of my students. I have 30 students I'm responsible for in my class, and then I'm trying to throw another 6 on top of that. So are there some opportunities, given we're not expecting to shrink the school day? Are there some opportunities to create that within the school day that might give opportunities for kids to be on track, accruing credit in the classes that they're already taking, versus have these opportunities that they have to redo something? Academic advancement is a big one in this particular community. What we saw in our data last year was we saw a pretty big uptick in AP coursework access and kids piling on lots and lots of AP credits. That's appropriate for some of our kids, or kids who choose to do that. And so how do we continue some of those opportunities so that kids have, outside of just the typical or I don't want to say minimum either, but what we're able to offer in the context of a school day. So we're doing things like evaluating policy around, currently we limit the number of outside coursework that we'll transcribe onto a transcript to 3 credits. That's a limit that we have imposed, not necessarily based on need, but based on, I don't know how we came up with 3, but 3 is the number. Could we expand that in different ways to allow kids, every year I have a question around AP Chinese. And we don't offer AP Chinese in our district, but could we pre-approve some providers so we know automatically if you take AP Chinese through this provider, we're going to provide the test for you, because that's the question that usually comes up. Will you provide the test? Or will you allow us to test when you're doing AP testing? And we'll transcribe that automatically onto your transcript, so there's no sort of approval process that you have to go through. So increasing flexibility that also increases agency for families and students is an important component of that. We have worked through our inclusion work beginning at elementary. Secondary has been working through various iterations of co-teaching models that primarily has been isolated to core, like English, math. Is there an opportunity to provide some strategic investment in some other areas of co-teaching that would give kids greater access to CTE coursework or elective coursework? Or I know Juanita High School was playing, I think at the end of last year, and I think it might be this year, with a co-taught leadership class. So kids who need that extra support can be part of that class as well. And they were delivering some of the services in that context differently. So instead of pull out social skill, organization skill, they're delivering it within the classroom. So there's some unique opportunities that we might have to explore options like that, given that we're not trying to pull back the full cost of the 7-period day. The last one really started out to be a point of contention, I think, when we started talking with principals in June. And in our last meeting, we had a really productive conversation about, well, this could give opportunities for kids. It could make it easier for kids to take WANIC because all the schedules would be consistent, and so WANIC could adjust to some of that. Or it might be possible for a student at, say, Redmond High to run over to Lake Washington because they offer an AP class that Redmond High doesn't have, and I have capacity in my schedule to do that because I've accrued a bunch of credits already. But our schedules currently don't align in a way that would allow for that. So we're exploring opportunities, and I like how Dr. Holman at the first meeting framed it. We were sort of pushing back on it around, do we really have to do this? And he said, no, we don't really have to do this, but you're going to have, if you don't do it, you're going to have to tell me why it's best for kids to not do it. So that shifted the conversation a little bit in our last meeting, and I appreciate it. Our principals are really, I think, having thoughtful conversations. So the committee that worked last year, we recognized, I'm an elementary guy, I make no secret about it. I don't have a lot of experience with high school scheduling, nor did most of our committee members. So we knew that in order to explore different options, we were going to have to put some people in the room that did have that experience. So we formed a technical work group this year. We actually started in June, and we continue here through August and September. All of the high school principals are participating in that. A counselor from every school. The choice schools, we took a counselor from one of the choice schools to represent that perspective because it's a relatively small group of people. Our instructional services staff, so Dr. Rose is on the committee, as is Nyla Fritz, who represents the 612 curricular perspective, as well as CTE. So if we make some adjustments in the school day, there's some implications for CTE pathways, and so she's in the conversation from the very beginning. We have a curriculum specialist who's joined that. Student services is involved, so our executive director of student services and the 2 directors of student services that work with secondary are also involved in the technical work group. Dale Cody from school support, 2 directors, so Matt Livingston and Dr. Whitney Meisner. We asked Dr. Meisner to facilitate for us. So again, she's coming at that from a high school perspective. She's done a really fabulous job right now, and she is very concrete sequential in her planning, which is super helpful in keeping us on track to talk about the appropriate things. And I'll share a little bit about what that work. Tim Krieger is on it as well, or Dr. Tim Krieger now is on it. So from a data research, he's pulling data for us. We're pulling in others as needed. So we know that the cost of the 7-period day is in staffing. So if we're reducing cost, that's probably going to have some staffing implications. So pulling in people from human resources, Michael Clark, who does the staffing work for the district, pulling him into the conversation about what does that look like? How do we do that in ethically responsible and humanistic ways? So he comes in and out, as well as others. John came to the first one. He didn't come to the second one, but he's always invited, and I'm sure will show up at some point. Yeah, sorry, John. We also know, as you know, there is a very accelerated schedule for coming up with some recommendations on what that shift could look like. And that really is driven by two things. One, it takes a little bit of time to build a course catalog. So kids need to know what courses are going to be available in order to sign up for them. And then the second part of that is that sign-up process. So if we make a change, or when we make a change, there's going to be a lot of work to do to help students, particularly like our board reps here, who are, well, you wouldn't as a 12th grader because it would be next year, but you would as a junior. You've laid out a high school plan, you've laid out the credits that you need along the way, and if there's a change in that, we need lead time for counselors to be engaging families and students in adjusting for that. We also need lead time to build understanding of the implications with our stakeholders, with our community, and I will speak to that here in just a minute. So we have a meeting tomorrow. First meeting was principals only, and so we had conversations about what the scope was. We selected counselors. They came to the second meeting. That was a brilliant move because adding the counselors they really are the people that are interacting with kids around academic progress and what credits and courses they need to take. So they've been really instrumental in helping shape the thinking. Our last meeting, so the first couple of meetings has been asking lots and lots of questions, and we've gone down some tangential conversations that we're trying now to pull back into, it's all hypothetical at this point. Until we know what the student experience is for the day, it's really hard to know what the implications or what those branches are going to be. So we're trying to refocus on, let's look at the day first, and then we'll start adding things onto that meet some of these other criteria. So that's the work we're doing tomorrow. We hope to have a recommendation around September 20th that would go to Dr. Holman, and then obviously we'll share more broadly than that as we have some conversation about it. That includes stakeholder engagement. So I may push that into the following week, because when we looked at how we want to do some student engagement, some student focus groups, we actually want to start school before we have those so that we can have students available. Yeah. So these are the work group considerations. We've broken into some small groups, and it's sort of at the center is what is the student experience around the high school day. And these are the questions. I'm not going to read them to you because you can read, but these are really the questions that the committee, these little small groups, have been struggling with. This one's really around what is the day going to look like, and questions around, so when we moved to the 7-period day, we added 20 minutes to the length of the school day. There were lots of questions about school start time and end times that came up. That was one of the tangents we went down. We separated that conversation. Yes, we need to do some evaluation work there. It is not coupled to this work at this point because that's really complex. You know, from last year, you make one change at one school and it blows up the whole system and you're starting over, which may be appropriate down the line, but not as part of this. So this group is really focused, and this is the shift we're making tomorrow, is we're pulling all of the brains back onto this problem so that we can start getting ideas out that we can kick around an executive cabinet, and Barbara and I can have conversations about, well, this is a really cool idea, but it's going to cost $50 million to implement. And so help rein in some of that thinking. The second group is really around, there were concerns, particularly from principals, around facility issues. So really, it's interesting to me, we added the 7th period. We thought that was going to create a bunch of extra opportunities, particularly around electives. That's not always the case because the facilities themselves don't have the capacity for the specialty coursework. So if I'm a woodworker, so if I want to do a woodworking shop class, I got to have a space to do that, and you may or may not have the space in schools to do that. So while we're talking a little bit about this, we don't expect that some of this is beyond our scope to be able to address. But there were questions around, so if we change the school day, teachers need places to have their planning time, so making sure that we're considering that as we move our work forward. The next one is around course catalog. Tim Krieger does this work for us, so you might imagine he's concerned about the timeline, rightfully so, because that work really starts happening in earnest in October and culminates in November so that we can publish the course catalog. So we're backwards planning. That's why the accelerated timeline on making some recommendations and then implementation planning will continue after that. This one's a big one. So the green is really around stakeholder engagement, and I'll share a little bit more about our thinking so far with that. But there are working conditions that we're going to have conversations with our LWA partners around if we make shifts to how that time is allocated across the day. So Dale Cody sits on district labor management, and we've charged him with you're listening for those kinds of conversations and going to engage our labor partners on that and bring information back to the group on that. The conversation really is around how do you humanize the change. Again, there's lots of concern, and principals are on the front line. They're going to be the ones addressing these questions. I was RIF'd my first year of teaching, and then I was RIF'd my second year of teaching. I kept getting hired back, so that was great, but that's stressful, particularly on a young family, and so we want to make sure we do that in a way that honors the people as well, if we even have to. So one of the questions I've asked Michael Clark to investigate for us is we're a big system and we have attrition that happens every year, and what does that actually look like at the high school level on an average year? So we're collecting that data now. The blue one was on student registration, and while this only has 3 bullets, this really is a lot of work. This is how do we set our counselors up to be able to have the time to have the conversations with kids and families around what the change, whatever change, means for the individual student. What courses do they need? What courses were they planning to take? It's interesting, my son is in a different district. Well, he just graduated, but he's in a different district, and I don't think he ever got an elective that he actually wanted. It was always what elective they could fit into his schedule. That's happening in our system too. That's a pretty common occurrence. But where we can create that flexibility, we want to give lead time in order to do that. So that is a big body of work that will continue throughout the year. So I sat in with a group that was talking about communication strategy, and this oversimplifies a great big document in our OneNote. But there's 2 components to this. One is to raise awareness. So we reported out in the spring. We've done some little tidbits here and there. We're not hearing a lot back, which has raised some level of concern that people don't know that this work is occurring. So we want to do some work here early in the year to ensure people are tuning in and understanding why and what the work is. So I signed Dr. Holman up to do a video in the next couple of weeks. And then the committee thought part of it is we can anticipate many of the questions. We're not going to know them all, but I know we are going to have families who wonder if we move to a different schedule, how does that impact my students' competitiveness in applying for colleges next year? We know how to answer that one now. Colleges don't look at the accumulation of AP credits necessarily. They look at, did you take advantage of the opportunities that were available? Because otherwise, kids from Granger, Washington would never get into college because their schools do not offer the breadth of things that a school district like Lake Washington can. So that we can answer some of those and start to put that information out. And we decided that when we push it out from the district level, we get a certain level of engagement that is much less than when it comes from the schools. So we're going to create the communication centrally with support from principals and counselors. And when I said I patted my chest because it's probably going to be me typing away on a computer. But and then we're going to have those go out through schools in sort of a weekly did you know thing that we can push out through Parent Square, we can push out in websites, social media, all sorts of ways. But when the school sends it out, I tend to read that more than when the district sends things out. So that work has started already. We're doing some more work on it tomorrow. We're going to do some town halls around the time that we have a recommendation. We learned when we did these last year for the start time, I held 3 of them, 2 in person and 1 that was supposed to be in person, but we moved to Teams. The 2 in person totaled attendance of around 10. So there were 3 at one and 7 at the other, and 3 of the 7 were employees. The one that we held online, I had 1,000 people involved in, well, almost 1,000. So we're really thinking about a strategy that allows people to join in from home in that regard, and doing a sort of, here's a little bit of information, now we'll take questions, push out the FAQs ahead of time, because some of those questions could be answered. And if we can't answer it in the moment, then that gives us some opportunity to address some other community sentiment. So we're planning those after school starts, probably in the 3rd-ish week of school. I haven't calendared them yet, but that's what the committee was talking about. Continued FAQs, we will likely do a thought exchange or survey, particularly when we have something for people to look at so they can compare, well, here's the impact to my family. This could be good in this way. This is not so great in this way. That also can inform planning when we have a decision. Another video from Dr. Holman. I've signed him up for lots of videos. And then published in the typical ways, continue to push information out through school. And then once the decision is made, we're moving into the implementation steps. So students are a big piece of this, and we have reps on the board. They represent an aspect of our student community. Our committee struggled with how do we really know the solutions we're envisioning are going to be supportive of what students need, particularly the students that our system is not serving particularly well right now. So the strategy we came up with is we want to get school started, and then we're going to have a consistent set of questions that we ask our counselors to engage students. They know who the kids are. They have relationships with many of them. And they can do that in a way that just isn't purely transactional like it would be if I show up at school and start asking questions. From that group, we're gonna ask them to generate their questions and ideas. From that group, we're gonna pull, we were calling it a summit. We'll pull some kids from that based on recommendations from the counselors and pull them all together at a district level conversation that we're going to have a consultant facilitate for us. And the consultant spoke to our DLT during DLT weeks, very engaging young man, comes from the Hilltop neighborhood of Tacoma. He's a poet, and I feel like he has an opportunity to engage kids in a different way than 55-year-old me could do. So we've already talked to him. He's interested in doing that, and I think we'll get some really interesting data and input from those experiences. So that's right off the bat the intent, to engage kids in the conversation early. Then we will continue to do things like that as we move into the implementation phase, continuing to collect feedback. Is this landing in the way it was intended? Is this resonating? Do you understand the implications or outcomes? What supports do we need to provide to support kids through that? So that's the sort of plan as we move into implementation. We also are thinking about this in the sense of this is going to be iterative. We're not going to have a perfect plan that we roll into next year with. We will continue to think about what are those supports, what are those experiences that we want to continue to develop as we learn more and grow into next year. So we're not going to have every detail figured out, particularly for the outside of the school day opportunities. Certainly some of them. Like one of the things that our district doesn't do, but Dr. Meisner had it at her school, which was a smaller high school, is work-based credit. You can get high school credit for work, and we have many families where our kids work, and how can we engage some unique opportunities like that for kids to accumulate credit that we're currently not doing. They're perfectly legit. Dr. Rose has been working on the performance-based grad pathway. It's sort of akin to that as well. So just to reiterate, August 20th is tomorrow, and then there's a little bit of a lull because we actually need to start school and give our principals and counselors time to do that. But hopefully out of tomorrow's half-day session, we will have some things that we can start fleshing out a little bit and putting some detail to as we come back together in September. So that is the goal. That is my update on the work of the high school day committee thus far. I didn't have 97 slides. I was told brief. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Director Lilliberty.
I was going back through the slides from 2017 and 2018 when we switched to the 7-period day. And you've addressed already a lot of the sort of the thinking, okay, the reason for the change of the time was to provide more opportunities for acceleration. I think exploration and remediation were the words we used.
Yep.
And I appreciate that the committee's already thinking about, okay, how do we, I also do not like the term remediation, but like how do we provide those opportunities within the system in another way, and acceleration. The exploration part, so there's two parts to that, I think. One is when you go to fewer than 7 periods, students have just one less slot to take classes. But then also this was mentioned back in 2017, more conflicts in the schedule. So how is the committee evaluate, or the work group evaluating that component of it?
Yeah, the last committee, that's why we did some work around we intended for that exploration. How are we actually using those extra slots? We didn't find increases in elective kids like music. We used music as a proxy because that existed pre and post and has sort of been here throughout. We didn't see an increase. We actually saw a decrease in the amount of kids that were taking. And I was generous in what anything that had anything to do with music, I included in the data set. So I'm not sure we realized what we intended to in terms of the exploration. In terms of the scheduling, that's the piece that I'm an elementary guy, and I don't know how that works at the high school. That's why we have the high school principals in the room, and Nyla Fritz, who also manages CTE. CTE courses are supposed to be part of a pathway. We have a lot of one-off kinds of things, so there might be some opportunity to align that, so get kids exploring through a pathway. But I don't think I can answer that until we've dug deeper into the work and whatever that day is going to look like.
I mean, just in particular, going back and looking, I mean, what was identified in particular as an area for conflict would be band, orchestra, and world language so I just know that's going to be something that families are going to be asking about.
Yeah, world language we've moved down into middle school too, so that's
right.
one of the credits that kids are bringing.
That's true.
Many kids are bringing out of middle school. So there's ways also that didn't exist back then. It's like 6 years ago. Way back then, there's opportunities that exist now that allow kids to sort of bank some credits.
Yeah. Okay.
That may create some of those
Right.
slots for the exploration as well.
Neat. Okay.
Good question, though.
Director Guthrie.
Yeah, and especially kind of building on Director Liberty's question there, and the outside credits, being able, if we were to raise that limit to 4, effectively that would give every student the option for their own 7-period day, basically with the credits that they're able to earn during the high school day, and then they could have another outside credit each year. So that's another thing that probably didn't exist as strongly way back when, in terms of online courses and things that can be done asynchronously. So, the school day isn't an issue, or it's not like a conflict there. I'm curious if there's been any exploration, though. I know when I've talked to families about this, the cost of those outside credits comes up, and it can be quite substantial. Are there things that we could do to facilitate that access, or things that we should be keeping an eye on? I love that you called out that access of, it's not just enough to have these opportunities, because in many cases they do exist today. But how can we facilitate access to those outside credits?
A couple of different ways. One, part of our conversation in the last meeting was we don't really run any sort of regional opportunities, and I think you're right. There's some course content and delivery mechanisms that didn't exist way back 6 years ago. Dr. Holman spoke about one tonight. We're piloting Canvas LMS at Lake Washington and Inglewood middle school. It was a junior high back in my day. That gives you some unique opportunities outside of classroom teams, in order to deliver content and interact with students in a different way. We talked as a group about, could we offer some regional opportunities that are like those one-off AP courses for enrichment that don't necessarily come with a cost, because we've embedded that in our overall plan. We also talked about, are there some partnerships that we can be pursuing, so that if I'm a student and the thing that's prohibiting me from taking something is the cost of it, we have a pretty connected community, and there are ways that we could address some of that as well. So there's lots of different ways that we're thinking, but yes, that is an ongoing concern of the community, or the group that's working on this, is we don't want to further create barriers for access to, I got to come up with a better word than remediation. Come on, Jen, help me. Retrieval. We want to have options for retrieval as well as acceleration and enrichment.
Shira?
Okay, I might have asked this last time, but I'm still kind of curious if we have any data on how many students decide to remove classes that they took in middle school from their transcript, because I know it's now automatic. So do we have any data about that?
Well, it's only been automatic for a year, and it was not very many.
Not many. Okay. Thank you.
But it may be in part because people don't know you have to actually do that. But yeah, that was a concern, because I think it was this last year's juniors that were the first group, so it was probably your group. Yeah.
James?
Going back to the timeline that you set, and just the comment that you had earlier about how we're going to include students in this conversation. So is going through the pipeline of the counselor picking out students to represent or to voice their opinion, is that the only way that we're going to have student engagement? Or is the work group going to include different ways that students can voice their opinions, I guess?
Yeah, likely. I mean, part of the reason we're trying to do some targeted is when we put out a survey, we get a response from a certain group of kids. We don't hear from all kids. We don't hear from the kids that are working after school, and you know what I mean? So we want to make sure that when we're doing these, we have multiple opportunities, but also do some very targeted conversations, so we're hearing from the groups that we don't ordinarily hear from in those more traditional ways that we engage. Yeah. So that really is the intent behind that targeted, and have counselors not just look at one specific group, but picking from across, the various groups of kids in schools.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. these summits that you hold with these students, will it be open to the public, or will it be just the students that the counselors choose?
The counselors will do the conversations, however they want to do that. It might be a facilitated one-on-one, or it might be a group sort of thing. So that's up to the counselors. When we do the summit, I think it would be difficult to have that be an open public meeting, because that's, for a lot of kids, that's going to be a place I'm not going to be willing to voice my opinion. So I think we'll be careful about who and how and where those occur.
Director Stewart.
The work experience idea, I really like. Would that be probably bundled through the CTE type of a situation? I'm trying to figure out where it would go through, because it seems like to me a CTE would be almost
I think
a given.
it can. I think it doesn't have to be a CTE sort of thing. There's a whole set of rules around it, and I've read it, but I'm not an expert, so I will not attempt to answer that yet. But I can get you that information.
Director Guthrie.
Talking about, again, going back to access, and I was looking through OE14 to see what indicators we have right now around access to Running Start and WANIC, for example, and they're a little bit weak, I would say. It looks like there's one indicator from my very quick browse, and it bundles together, it bundles AP in there and Cambridge as well. So, and it only looks at one, so basically if you take one class, so the numbers are quite high. I mean, almost every subgroup has 90% plus accessing at least one dual credit class over the course of their careers. But it seems like we might need to get a little bit more granular there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I just want to make sure, again, as we're making this transition, that we're not repeating what we did previously of making a big change and then sort of waiting 6 years to look back at it.
Mm-hmm.
Having indicators like that along the way would give us a little bit more granular of are we achieving the results that we want? And if not, in that particular area, sort of how can we adjust?
I love that you brought up WANIC, because the thing we hear the most that's a barrier to access to WANIC is the fact that you have to drive there. So I got to have a car, and it's got to be a decent car because I got to go every day. Barbara loves it when I come to her and say, hey, what does a bus route cost? If we wanted to run like regional shuttles, or even take advantage of, can you ride a city bus to a place where we pick you up and then take you direct? Those kinds of questions are things that we're actively investigating. I don't know we'll have all that answered by September 20th, but that's the work that needs to occur moving forward. The other one is Running Start has some new opportunities also. You can actually go to Running Start in the summer and accumulate credits that way. You could actually start that the summer before your junior year as well. So making those more, it used to be school districts avoided talking about Running Start because we lose FTE to that. The perspective, which I appreciate from Dr. Holman, is that if we're truly about putting the student at the center, it's whatever's best for the student. And for some kids, Running Start is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. So how do we remove the barriers to those opportunities?
Anyone else? Any other comments, questions? James, do you have anything else? No? All right. I had a couple questions. I'm looking up, what was the language? From our study session, we were talking about wanting our students to take calculated risks as a goal. And knowing that right now we do have barriers, and I appreciate that we're trying to reduce those barriers for students to access alternative methods to gain credits and access classes that they might want to take or need to take. I can appreciate that there's like an effort to do it and that we're thinking about it, but I can also imagine a scenario where those barriers can't be overcome for whatever reason. And reducing the number of credits to 6 credits really doesn't give you flexibility with the graduation requirements the way that they are to take calculated risks and to explore different things that you don't know if you're interested in. And I struggle to, and it very much 100% actually is because I don't know what the recommendation is going to be. And like, I hate being in this position where I don't know what the recommendation is. And being parts of those conversations, that's just, I have control issues. But I do have this like concern of the math doesn't make sense. It doesn't, 6 credit, a 6-period day with our graduation requirement, there isn't, the flexibility is not there.
There is and there isn't. So it's not necessarily in the accumulation of credits, but the majority of schools in the state are not running a 7-period day.
That was another question I had.
It was too expensive. Like I was in Marysville when we did this a long time ago. And the 7-period day wasn't even part of the conversation there because we knew we could not afford it. We could not sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I was interested in last year in the committee, we looked at it towards the end, was the grad rate in our district has continued to tick up, which is awesome. And I think it was 94.7% last year. When you look at the comparison of the state graduation rate with the assumption that everybody else moved to the 24 credit diploma at the same time we did, most districts could not implement a 7-period day because of the cost, and some of the other models are just as costly. The rate of increase at the state is almost mirrors identically what ours is. So it's an interesting question, but it's not necessarily directly related to the number of periods in the day in terms of what risk kids are willing to take. I think about it in terms of my own, well, all 3 of my kids went to the same high school because we've lived in the same house for 22 years. It was a 6-period day. And they all had, my daughter's favorite class, the one that's now a veterinarian, was a biotechnology class. And she carried around for like a year and a half a 3D printed model of Ebola that they made. Yeah, not me, but it worked for her. And that wasn't a core requirement. That was a class with it was actually a really great teacher. She's retired now. That she took out of interest. You know what I mean? So there's still opportunity, maybe not as much opportunity. The other thing in the data that we saw, and you were part of the committee, it was really interesting to see how many kids are not taking a full load already in 11th and 12th grade. And we don't allow it really at 11th grade, but we've got a significant portion of kids that aren't taking a full load. We don't allow it at all at 9th and 10th grade. So that's that early in the presentation, that comment about we applied this global solution to every kid that may or may not. Where we're struggling now is how do we create those additional opportunities for the kids that do want to do those things. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a fair question, Leah. I really think so. I just don't know that I can answer it immediately.
Dr. Holman's dying to jump in.
Well, I want to also provide, I appreciate the question around how do we help our students think about options to take risk. And I would say we have a relatively safe experience right now. I would be excited for our students to actually know and be able to access the opportunities that are currently present. Like, students qualify for a 1.6 FTE when you combine their high school day plus Running Start. Running Start is now available in the summer. Having access to coursework that's automatically transcribed that you're taking outside of the school day. And then maybe the safest way to access additional credit would be 0 or 7th period classes, because it's still within the structure of our schools. And so I completely agree that finding ways to take risks is essential, in making sure that our students have access to that, like actually tangibly laying a pathway so our students, all of them, have access to those. I don't know many students that are taking on the challenge of a 1.6 FTE high school schedule and running start, but it's totally available to all of our students right now. That is to me, that seems like about as rigorous an experience as you can have. And with the number of credits our students are bringing into high school, I haven't calculated the number of credits a student could actually accrue with all of the opportunities that are available to them, but it would, and actually that may be a good exercise for us. Like, what are some of the different ways that students could have various experiences through the system? Some very, very safe ways, not Safeway, not Albertson, safe ways to go through the system, but also some pretty unique opportunities. And I haven't even talked about WANEC as one of those. Like, there's some really unique and, WANEC coursework, I believe all, if not high 90% of it is dual credit coursework. It is college pathway coursework. It isn't technical ed of the past. It is rigorous coursework. So,
And I think, so I agree. I think that there's more options today than any of us experienced when we were
Absolutely.
students ourselves. But of all the options that were listed, 90% of those have a cost associated with it. Either some sort of outside tuition, transportation, time, and you'd have to attend summer school, running start, instead of potentially having a job. So there's just, when I talk about like there's guaranteed barriers, I think it's so important for me personally to see that, yes, we have these amazing options. Yes, we're communicating them, but is it really accessible for the students that we're most concerned about? And I'm hoping to see that in the recommendation. I don't know that that's feasible in this timeline. I can appreciate that.
I'm backing up because I specifically put it in there in
Yeah.
all capital letters. Let's see, what is it? It's right there. Running start and how to access those opportunities. So it's not just that they're available, but we haven't talked about the Cascadia trustees come all the time and talk to you guys. I don't know that we have a real robust partnership right now with Cascadia Community College. What might that look like if we provided some facilities? Or, you know what I mean? There's things we haven't explored, and there's opportunities that WANEC is another, we've talked about that. It's a great one. Transportation is a barrier. So are there some ways that we can use this as an opportunity to take away some of those barriers? We got to go out and visit the fire academy out in North Bend, and I was blown away, not just because everything's on fire, but I was blown away at the coursework those kids take. They learn fire science. Their science is, they're in a burning shipping container learning about why the smoke is doing what it does and what the chemical composition of the smoke is based on the stuff. It's unreal what those kids are learning. I feel like yes, and I do. And I know we have a significant portion of kids who are accelerating their credit earning, particularly dual credit that have college access, because that gives you a leg up in college and can save your family significant dollars. Even having conversations in our schools about what are we offering for college in the high school. So my son, he's smarter than I am, really worked the system. He knew if he took an AP course and it had college in the high school, he's not taking the test. There's no reason for it because you can get the free college in the high school. My other two kids, I had to pay for that, but you don't anymore. We don't we don't have a ton of those opportunities. So how can we use this as an opportunity to expand those kinds of things for kids? Yep. Yep.
Okay, first question is how many like students are taking like Running Start? Like, is the number like increasing or like decreasing or
It's actually decreased a
decreasing?
little bit.
Okay, and then I think my concern is like, I think people can learn how to access these opportunities, but I don't know how viable it will be for everyone. Cause like personally, like I like having my structured day, and like Running Start is like, I've always had that option and I know how to access it, but it isn't something that I think is viable to me. So that's just my only concern. Like, it'd be interesting to see when you are having those discussions with students, how likely are they to participate in those opportunities?
I'm going to go back another slide because I agree with you. One more. It's right there. One size doesn't fit all. So, Shira, I have 3 kids. One did Running Start. One took a couple of AP classes. That's the one that's a doctor, oddly enough, now. And then my son, who gamed the system, took every AP class he could and only took the test if he had to because he wanted the college credit. You know what I mean? So each student needs to be engaged differently. And I totally agree that for some kids, Running Start isn't the thing. My son didn't do it because he wanted to participate at his school. He wanted to be part of that school community. He's grown up with the same kids his whole life, so he wanted to be there. And that's great. So part of what we're trying to do in this is create lots of different opportunities so that we're meeting a broader range of need overall. And it really is related to those first 2. We forced everybody into the 7-period day. And then people are in 11th and 12th grade. I can't remember the number, but we have a significant portion that take Running Starts, like 22, 23%, something like that. I was looking at Leah because, and then it's only like 60% of the kids outside take the Running Start out. The remaining group of kids, only 60% of them are taking a 7-period day, or 40%. I don't know. It's one of the two. So there's a significant group of kids who are making other choices for themselves right now. Summer work, Leah, if we were offering credit for the work, if we could, use some of that funding for summer staff to support summer jobs for credit, how might we be able to create flexibility and opportunity for kids that way? So I completely agree, and that's the work. You're not going to have all of that figured out by September 20th, but that's the work. That's the work, and I referenced that it really is an iterative process because we'll have some things in place, and then we're going to commit to continue working on that.
Director LaLiberty.
It was surprising tonight that we had no public given this is an agenda item that will affect, this decision will affect so many students. It's been interesting to me that we had nobody come to a comment tonight to provide any input. I have received no emails on this yet, and it's work that we've been doing publicly. I mean, we've had meetings on this. So I guess my comment would be, I'm glad to see that we're going to have a video with Dr. Holman providing some level of update. I would hope that video would not just be at a high level of the work, but provide specific examples to families of, and I recognizing this work is ongoing, of what some outcomes could be of a recommendation, so that parents and students know how to engage and what to engage on. It's just surprising to me so far that we have not had, at least at the board level, a lot of community engagement and interest on this.
Agreed.
Okay.
Us too.
Okay.
Us too. Now that was interesting because we looked at this data last year and it wasn't a scientific survey, but when we did the budget prioritization stuff, it was really fascinating to me how low in the priorities for every group the 7-period day was. I did not expect that, given who typically fills out our surveys. And so I'm intrigued by it also. And part of the reason I worked with the engagement group was how do we raise the level of awareness? Because the only way we're going to be able to create a responsive system is if we know what some of those pain points are. So, you know, I can anticipate some of them, but I certainly can't anticipate all of them. So, agreed.
Director Guthrie.
Again, building on what Director LaLiberty and Director Choi both said, I think some of this will come out as families, as it starts to become real for families. I had the benefit, right around the time that you presented last May, I was going through my own junior's transcript and trying to make sure that she was on track to graduate. And it really, in that moment and hearing what you were presenting, it really made it real for me. I opted to take one of her middle school math courses off her transcript because she didn't need it. She had accumulated enough credits. She did summer WANIC one summer. It now conflicts with, she has an extracurricular that's really important to her. It conflicts with that, but this summer she was able to access Summer Running Start. It's an asynchronous online course. She was doing it when we went to Boston as a family. She does not need any transportation because she had to go, she took one test that she had to go in person for, variety of days that were available. She is doing Running Start, which the other thing about Running Start is that and I believe WANIC is similar too, is that it really piles up the credits because the summer class that she's doing is equivalent to one full year of a high school class. So I went in a little nervous that, because she is also in a unique high school that does not, has a 4-period day basically right now. And so I went in nervous that she wasn't on track, and I came out very appreciative of the variety of options that have been available to her in this district. And this was all no cost, or no cost options, because sometimes there's fees with Running Start, but there are waivers for those that are already in place. So I think that maybe made me a little more, less concerned than moving into this board work. Again, I will keep hammering that access is important. And the fact that I had the knowledge to be able to sit down and make sure that she had this and that and putting that all together, that is work. And that is not something that, that she could really do independently. So having adult support for all students, be it a parent, be it a counselor, be it whoever, I think that's really important. But there really are a lot of opportunities, and it's meaningful to her is maybe the most important thing. The summer WANIC class that she's taking is statistics, and she is working towards her associates in behavioral health. And so the connections between statistics as a math class specifically and those long-term career goals, it's incredibly meaningful for her. She's written papers that directly tie her personal experiences with her career goals. So I think I'm hoping that you have the opportunity to tell some of these stories, because it really is remarkable what is already in place. That does get to those 24 credits that, yes, we need to get every kid across that finish line, and we can't lose sight of that. But helping create that student profile that we were just looking at in the study session and the ways that we can help kids get there. I really appreciate that.
And also just want to remind the board, after the May 20th study session, we sent out communication, and then I did record a video that we sent out on June 7th with the link to the report recommendations, and had a survey attached to that as well. And so, Director LaLiberty, to your point, we haven't had a lot of feedback, but there was over 2,400 views of that video and 2 thumbs up. I don't know what that means, but.
Any other questions or comments, Director Stewart?
Going on what Director Guthrie was saying, I think perhaps as you look at the videos, as much as everyone wants to see Dr. Holman in a video, you might also want to consider having some students tell their stories, or parents telling their stories about how they access certain programs, basically putting it into real life situation, because then it no longer is April. I don't know. I think that's why you're not getting any questions now, why we're not having public comment, because once it becomes set in stone, then everybody's going to want to comment, because then there's something concrete that they can actually grab onto and either praise or complain about.
We experienced that last year during the start time
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
It was hard to get anybody to notice until we put options out, and then we got lots of feedback then. Yep.
All right, I had one final kind of question, and that was, you mentioned coming up with a communication strategy to tell students and parents and families kind of what options exist that are here already and that students can be taking advantage of. Is that communication strategy going to be running concurrently with the communication strategy around moving to a 6-period day?
It
Or
may
is that
lag a little
separate?
bit, but yeah, the
Okay.
intent is to start communicating that. I mean, that was one of John's that he put in, and it was not just this year, but on an ongoing basis. How are we ensuring that our families and our kids know about the opportunities that exist for them? And Mark, I love your idea about having some student testimonials, but the different ways, the different ways, bull in the china shop, the different ways that kids are making choices for themselves. Yeah, I love it.
Awesome, thank you. I don't think we have any other questions or comments. Anything else, Dr. Holman? The next item on the agenda this evening is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman.
Okay, so tonight I have two topics for the board. First, I want to share with you about the update to our Lake Washington School District website. And then just a reminder that we do have a construction levy on the November 5th ballot. And so I want to share with you a quick video that is linked to our webpage that just provides some update rationale and guidance related to the website. Let me turn my volume on so you can actually hear it. Let's try that again, Director of the Liberty.
I'm just glad you didn't click on who died today. That's
Welcome to the new Lake Washington School District website. We've made significant improvements to enhance your experience. Let's dive in. Our website prioritizes readability and accessibility. Fonts are crisp, colors are well contrasted, and navigation is straightforward. Our new Translate tool supports 10 of the most commonly used languages in our district. Just click the globe icon and the writing on the page will be automatically translated into one of those languages. Students and families can find important info in a breeze right here under the Students and Families menu as the menu pops out on screen, making it easy to find important pages like class link, student email, Skyward Family Access, school menus, and more. Our new design also makes it easier to navigate to a specific school website. Click on the Schools button in the top right corner of the page. A menu will pop up and you can select the school site you would like to go to. Each school site has a list of navigation buttons giving you access to the most popular pages. The first button is Contact Us. Click on this button to get a list of that school's contact options. Looking for something and want to find it quick? Use our powerful search feature. Type keywords or explore popular links. There is even a section that shows the site's most popular searches that may help you find what you are looking for faster. Our new site is optimized for use on your mobile device. If you're using a cell phone on lwsd.org, you can find the navigation menu by clicking the 3 lines in the upper right corner, also known as the hamburger menu. From here, you can access all the same navigation options as you would on a computer. Calendars are one of the most searched for items on our site. Just click the calendar icon in the top right corner of any page next to Students and Families to take you to our calendars page. There you can find current and future school year calendars, as well as school and athletic calendars. Stay connected. Parent Square is a tool we use to communicate with our families. You can find links to Parent Square conveniently placed in news and story sections. You can also find Parent Square linked under the Students and Families navigation and under the Popular Searches section of the search tool. Get updates regularly and engage with our community. Stay informed with LWSD newsletters. Scroll to the bottom of any page and click the LWSD newsletters button. On the next page, sign up for any of the newsletters the district sends out to keep you updated on what is happening in LWSD. Your feedback matters. Use our website feedback form to share your thoughts. You can find the form in our help section. Your feedback will help improve the website experience for all users. Contact us directly. Phone numbers and email addresses can be found by clicking the Contact Us button at the bottom of each page. So go ahead and explore our revamped website today. It's designed with you in mind. Thanks for visiting.
And so this is about a year's worth of work to move from our former website to this website. It's been about 10 years since we've updated our website, and so Shannon Parthamer really led the project. That was Keel, one of our project managers from Technology Operations, that you heard the voiceover. But it is a significant effort to really try and understand from the user experience, and knowing that the users for our website have such an expansive set of needs and interests, students, families, staff, people that would like to be employed by the district. I mean, you think of all of the different people that are coming to our website for this variety of needs. Making it accessible and easy to use is very challenging, and so I really appreciate the modern design and the look and feel of the website, and so wanted to share. And I believe it launched just today. It was supposed to be July, and it was delayed just a little bit, but here we are on August 19th with a new website. So very excited that project got done, and I know that's a big effort. There's some internal staff portal pieces that the public doesn't see, but that we've moved to SharePoint and those kinds of things. And so lots of work going on our internal and external web presence. So the second thing I wanted to share with the board was just a reminder that we have a Building Excellence Capital Construction Levy on the November 5th ballot. Our informational campaign has had a soft launch, and we will hit the ground running in kind of beginning to mid-September, knowing that people's focus and attention really is about getting their kids ready for school and just everything that occurs at the beginning of September. And then we will really launch into our informational campaign. Wanted to share a little bit of information with the board as a reminder. As we think about the informational campaign, we want to tell a compelling story. Why is this something that the board has put a resolution forward for a ballot measure? We know that public schools truly are the center and heart of communities. You go to a place that is thriving, you're going to have thriving schools. And so we believe that we truly are a partner with our community within our schools, and the buildings that are here are part of that. This is phase 2 of a 3-phase plan. This plan has been modified over time. Phase 1 we led with and then made some substantive changes. For example, the original plan was to put a second elementary school on the Red L campus. Given the change in enrollment patterns and things like that, the board repurposed those levy dollars to rebuild and enlarge Rockwell Elementary. And that's just one of the changes that we made in phase 1. Phase 2 is a much more prescriptive phase, and we're excited to be able to go out and tell that story to our community. Phase 2 has 5 distinct projects. The 4 school projects already have gone through pre-design, so we actually have pictures and images to share with our community around what those schools would look like, where they would reside on the campus. 2 elementary schools, both Alcott and Smith Elementary, 2 middle schools, Kamiakin and Evergreen Middle School, and then we have the project of the field house and the community pool at Juanita High School. And what's unique and the through line for all of these projects, they are what we would consider aging facilities. And so these are facilities that don't currently meet our educational specification. They're the last 4 schools that don't meet our current educational specification, meaning they don't meet the current standards that we've set for our buildings in Lake Washington School District. And so, again, as part of our informational campaign, transparency around the projects, what we're asking our community, and the dollar amounts are important aspects to this. And so you can see here our elementary projects, Alcott Elementary and Smith Elementary have a different cost associated with them. That is because we've taken into account when the opening date is, and we know that there's construction escalation that occurs anywhere between, right now, between 8 and 10% annually. And so Alcott, with an opening date of 2027, comes in at $86 million. Smith opening 4 years later in 2031, $118 million. And you can see our 2 middle school projects with different costs. We also have different plans for each of our middle schools. We're actually able to repurpose some of Evergreen Middle School and use some of the current facility and tie that into the rebuild and enlarge project. We looked at that at Kamiakin as well. We weren't able to accomplish that same thing for Kamiakin. And then the field house and community pool. We've been submitting for grants for the pool at Juanita High School over time. Because we know that that is such a community asset. And so this $25.1 million is what is needed to continue that project. But we've received 2 phases of grants totaling $5 to $8 million for upgrades to the Juanita pool, which reduces that total cost. You can see the total levy amount is right around $676 million, and in that is about $70 million for construction escalation costs and for contingency that we build into all of our programs. That $70 million is about half of what we typically would ask our community for, and we're able to do that because we did all of the pre-design work ahead of time, and so we're able to project out the total cost of the projects with much greater accuracy, knowing that in all projects there's some give and take that we need to account for. And then we know that it's important to our community that we're transparent around the levy rates and the taxation portion of this. And so this is a slide that we've used for a number of years to show the total levy rate for all of the bonds and levies that Lake Washington currently has. You can see the purple portion of the bar starting in 2026 is this current capital construction levy that is on the ballot in November. And a few talking points related to this slide. For us, really moving forward with this levy, it's an opportunity to provide equitable learning environments for every student across our district. This levy allows all of our students to learn in modernized and 21st century schools. We also believe that this levy continues to improve and add to our community's assets, because we see our schools as community places where the community comes, they participate, they use our facilities, and so they truly are assets. And we are always mindful of the impact and the tax implications anytime we're going out and putting a levy or bond measure on the ballot. And so with this specific levy, we do recognize that this does increase the overall school district levy amount. and that over the tax years of 2026 and 2027, homeowners will see an annual increase of about $380 or $31 per month for a home with a county assessed value of $1 million. This levy, while it's running in 2024, collection would start in the 2026 year as past bonds and levies expire. This allows us to pay attention to and maintain a stable tax rate over time. And so just some of the efforts related to our informational campaign, you can see that started back in June and July. We did get all of the information turned into King County elections on time, and so it will actually be on the ballot. That's a key factor in moving forward with a levy. Then in September, you can see presentations, staff presentations, Teams live events, which we probably will do weekly starting in September. And then you can see in October, there's another component around Teams live events. We know when ballots actually drop and people see them in their hand, the questions around what is this levy become really real. And so we know that window from October 16th through Election Day on November 5th, that we're going to push pretty hard to get as much information and in front of as many people as we can, knowing that ballot comes, people really then start seeking to find out information about that. And so we have a website currently dedicated to this levy. We have an FAQ that's already started that we will continue to add to throughout our informational campaign, because our community, our families, they always bring us great questions that we know that more people would like to see that the answer to those questions. And so we appreciate the board putting this forward, and just wanted to bring it as a reminder. It's a big effort that will provide the informational campaign. And on our website, there is a place where individuals can request an informational campaign presentation, and we will go anywhere, anytime to provide this information, because it's really important. This is the shortest version of the informational campaign slide deck. We have a more thorough presentation that we would provide, and look forward to partnering with our community. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holman. It's going to be a busy September, October. The next item on our agenda this evening is school visits and community affairs. As the school year has not started yet, I don't anticipate that anybody had any school visits. Oh, there is one. Yes, Director Guthrie.
We forgot to talk at the last meeting about the visits that we did on June 27th to the new additions at Kirkland Middle School, Redmond Middle School, and Finn Hill Middle School. So yeah, Director Yoakum and Director Stewart and I had the opportunity to tour those. Obviously, they were still under construction, so we got to wear hard hats, which was really cool. Hopefully there's no photo evidence. Yeah, but it was great to see the progress there. All three just different in different ways. The way that they were really, each team really took into account the school that they were building into and sort of what made sense in that environment. Yeah, so thank you to there were a couple of different folks who were walking us through and pointing out some of the features. So that was really great to see.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any other updates from any community organizations or groups or anything that anybody will engage with on behalf of LWSD? Okay. Next item is normally committee updates. They have not started yet, so we won't have any updates on committees. And the next is a review of future board business. The board plans to meet on September 9th, 5 p.m. study session with a 7 o'clock board meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the August 19th, 2024 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Liberty and seconded by Director Yoakum that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 9 p.m. Thank you, everyone.